Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We talk prepping, guns, and politics every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go check out our content at mwfpodcast.com on Facebook or Instagram. You can support us via Patreon or by checking out our affiliate partners. I'm your host, Phil Rabalais. Andrew and Nick are on the other side of the mic, and here's your show. Son of a biscuit eater. You know what happened, Nick?
What's that?
Remember that issue we had a couple of episodes ago where, like,
you forgot to start the
local recordings?
Yeah.
So here's the funny thing. I know for a fact I had that selected the last several times, and that's supposed to be a durable setting. So I'm pretty sure what happened was because did you see that StreamYard just dropped a new feature in?
Pretty sure. Update again.
They did another update, and I forgot to check the settings. It's all right, though. We have
Goldern updates.
We have a cloud recording. I have a hardware recorder. I have a full hour at full power on this enormous friggin' uninterruptible power supply that's underneath my desk that I kick if I turn the wrong direction.
Good.
I think we're going to be okay.
Well, that's lovely.
But if you're listening to this in audio version after the fact, the nice, crisp, well-engineered audio will not be quite that nice as it is usually.
Oops.
But it might be perfectly acceptable. Who frickin' knows? Anyway, Matter of Facts podcast. I'm Phil. That's Nick. This is an Ask Us Almost Anything episode.
Most legal questions will be answered.
So we do have to have some ground rules. First of all, there are 3 people in the chat. You're welcome to fire questions in. Nick and I, whoever's not actively talking or answering, will star the things that we feel like merit further discussion. And also,
yes,
Nick and I have prepared a couple questions for each other while you bunch of aimless nutcases figure out what you want to ask us. Almost anything, nothing illegal, nothing immoral, nothing about our wives. I mean, you know, like you use kind of common sense instead of real serious premium these days, but use a little bit of it.
If you asked me it in front of my wife, would she hit you? That should be your bar.
What kind of a mood is she in? Because I feel like that kind of colors.
Kind of does. It kind of does. But, well, you take that risk.
Yeah, Mrs. Matter of Fact is not prone to physical violence, but every once in a blue moon, the Scottish and the Italian blood or the Sicilian blood collide with each other, and when that happens, it gets spicy quick.
I would imagine so.
Let's just take that comment right off the top from Kyle. Is coffee a good substitute for energy drinks? I say yes, because energy drinks nor coffee give me energy at this point. My blood is so diluted with caffeine that it doesn't even affect me. And coffee tastes a lot better than energy drinks.
All right. I will tell you this. One thing that energy drinks have that coffee does not have is some precursors and B vitamins. If you have a healthy, normal diet and you're getting an ample amount of these precursors and B vitamins, you won't see as much of a difference from energy drinks, comparing energy drinks to coffee if you're doing straight milligram to milligram caffeine load. However, if you do not have adequate B vitamins in your body or some of the other precursors that are in these things, you can see a greater uptick of energy. Or you could just take like a B complex first thing in the morning, then pound a cup of coffee, and then maybe grab one of the, like, I don't know, neurotropic supplements, which shockingly effective.
I mean, today I drank approximately 64 ounces of coffee while I was at work.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I had 320s. I think I'm at 60 ounces of coffee today. I should slow that down.
I knocked down a 32-ounce tumbler on the way to work, and then 4 8-ounce coffee mugs throughout the day.
Yeah,
but you know, to my credit, that's slightly above average consumption for me because last night I just couldn't sleep, stayed up way too much. So
yeah.
Rachel is saying that she doesn't do violence. I'm not going to debate that with her.
No, she does not.
And let's see here.
So,
Raggle, show me on the doll where the tism touched you.
Yes, definitely in the brain apparently.
You know, I was talking to my daughter about this the other day, and she was recounting something she'd read to me that was talking about how, like, you know, for the longest time there was this prevailing opinion where autism is like a relatively modern thing and it hasn't been around forever. And then she starts talking about like all the weird shit that like Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla and like all these men
The
and
guys that designed steam locomotives on pen and paper. You're telling me that wasn't an obsessive motherfucker?
Da Vinci.
Yeah. That
I
dude?
mean, for that matter, Michelangelo, the dude
Mm-hmm.
painted the Sistine Chapel, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah, you don't do that without a little bit of obsession.
Yeah, I totally understand her where she's coming from though. It's like autism and ADHD have been around for literal ever. We just used to call it genius.
Well, the difference was is it wasn't considered maladaptive because we didn't have children bricked into a school and locked into a desk for 8 hours straight. When kids were going to school, it was for a few hours a day if they were going to school, but most of the time they weren't. They were apprenticing under their parents in a trade. And I tell you what, 8-year-old me loved dicking around with plumbing, arc welders. You put me in front of a task to do, I will do the task as long as I have stuff to do. It
And and see on the computer side of things, because that's the majority of what I do. Like I try to explain to coworkers like when they look at one of the spreadsheets I built that they have to then come in behind me and like learn how it's constructed, learn how to use it. You know, like I build the process, they continue the process. And I've had them ask me before, like, how do you build this stuff? And I'm like, well, knowing like having this encyclopedic knowledge of all the different commands and the formulas and how macros are built, like that's just you can Google all that stuff. You can literally, for anybody that struggles with Microsoft Excel, freaking go to Google and start your prompt with in Microsoft Excel and then just write out in plain English what it is you're trying to do and
that's what I
start.
do.
I'm telling you, listen, I get stumped and I've been like neck deep in Microsoft Excel for 20 years. I'm
Mhm.
always learning something. I learned something today, as a matter of fact. I had a spreadsheet so I have a spreadsheet I used to do calculations, and then I had the bright idea to actually use the information in that spreadsheet to like auto populate some canned remarks that I then
Mhm.
copy paste into the system to explain what the adjustment is I'm doing. So the
Ah,
spreadsheet, you plug the information in the spreadsheet, it does the calculations, and then it takes and that and plugs them into a sentence and it just generates your line of text. But then I noticed because there's two spots where it's grabbing dollar amounts. And
mm.
if there was a following zero, like 50 cents, 60 cents, 70 cents, it was slicing off the last decimal place.
Huh.
And it was annoying the crap out of me because like I can put in a text string to put the dollar sign in ahead of it, but it was still treating it like a number, not currency. And I Googled it, and lo and
Mm.
behold, dollar, open parentheses, the cell reference you're trying to grab, comma, to close parentheses. You just converted that number into a dollar, into a currency in a
Well, that's
formula.
useful.
Useful as hell. I've been dicking
Yeah.
around with Excel for 20 years. And it never occurred to me.
It's one of those little things. Like how many commands are in Excel? It's got to be in the thousands.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah. There's no way you
Especially,
can memorize them all.
no, there's no way. But my point is, the point I was making to them was knowing all those commands, you can just Google that. You don't have to
Yeah.
memorize all that. I don't memorize all of it. It's irrelevant.
They used to come in a manual with the
Yes.
Excel. Uh,
But the hard part isn't knowing all those commands or knowing how to reference them. The hard part is being able to like shut your eyes and conceptualize.
yes.
Like it's like the difference between a person who like restores a statue and the person that chisels it out of a block of stone. You have to be able to look at the stone and see the thing and then remove everything from the thing you're trying to make. And that's kind of what my job turns into is I open up a spreadsheet and I have this blank sheet, nothing on it, and I have to create from nothing and then iterate and improve and make it more user friendly. But like some of these sheets, they're the product of 3 or 4 years of
Oh,
just
yes.
continual use, iterate, modify, use, and just continue to sharpen it up until it works better. But I can't teach a person how to be creative.
No,
I don't know
you
how
really
to teach
can't.
that.
And there was an interesting thing I learned many years ago. A buddy of mine, I think it's called aphantasia, where you can't visualize physical things in your head.
How does that work?
You just don't see pictures in your head. Apparently, there are, broadly speaking, this is a generalization, so it's probably wrong. There are 3 kinds of people. There are people that cannot hear a voice in their head.
I don't.
There are people that cannot see pictures in their head. And there are people that can do neither of those. And then there are people that can do both, all of them at the same time.
See, I'm definitely a picture person.
I can do pictures, texts, voices, and songs in my head. I have the ability to do all of that. And I think because of the nature of my childhood, I developed the ability to take things apart in my brain. Like if I see an assembly of something, I can see the individual pieces and how they go together in my head.
So you would have really excelled. Did you ever take the ASVAB?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember what you scored on the mechanical aptitude portion?
No, but I remember I scored very highly on the test generally.
I scored a perfect...
And then they found out I had asthma.
I scored a perfect score on the mechanical aptitude portion, which is literally just, here's a mechanical system. If I make this thing turn this way, then 27 gears later, what happens over here? Like, that's the long and the short of it, is it's looking at a mechanical system and being able to tell in your head how it works based on looking at it. So anyway, how do we get...
I think Rago was shooting that at you. Rago wants to know if you can have a conversation in your head. Because some people will see the conversation in their head as text, like a text scroll.
So my wife, my daughter, and I had this conversation recently, and they asked me if I had an internal monologue, and I don't. I
do. It's running constantly.
Well, but I don't. I don't know. I think of things, and I guess
that's also a form of aphantasia.
Yeah,
it's just how your brain is wired to process information. There are some negative consequences to certain forms of aphantasia. My buddy, he cannot see pictures in his head. He cannot visualize spaces in his head. So if he gets lost extremely easily, because he does not know that what he's seeing in front of him is that same view flipped 180 degrees.
It's almost
when he was coming the other way.
Oh.
Yeah, it's wild. We went to a convention center one time, and leaving the convention center, he had to turn left to get back to the hotel. He left the convention center, thought to himself, I went right when I turned into the convention center. Turn to the right. He got lost for hours.
Oh, yeah.
It took a couple of phone calls and us driving around to find him. Look, it's nothing against him. Brilliant guy, a phenomenal software coder. Cannot navigate to save his life.
Let me loop back to a couple of these before we move on to the questions. Stuart saying less than 2,000 commands and functions. He's been an Excel geek since I graduated high school. Actually, I graduated in 2001, but the point is,
I was 12.
I mean, and there was one other. Dr. Scary Guy say conditional formatting never wants to work right. I will say conditional formatting has gotten better in the more recent iterations of Excel, but it's still...
You have to be very specific.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's buggy, but it is very easy to screw it up. Like
it's also kind of limited in its functionality, in my opinion. I don't know how to make it better, though.
I find that the best use I've found for conditional formatting is to make simple visual check cues.
Yeah.
So in other words,
turn red,
like,
turn orange, turn blue.
Yeah. So like what I like to do in my spreadsheets when I'm doing a lot of different calculations and everything is, if there's more than one way to calculate a thing, I like to have your main calculation run like in front of you, this and this and this is this. And then somewhere else on another tab or maybe on some hidden cells, I'll calculate the opposite direction and then compare this to this. And if they don't match, it lights this up. And
that's a good use for it.
And in there was a spreadsheet I built that was literally just used to do payroll computation. So like if a person was supposed to make $16 an hour, they got paid $15 an hour because they didn't get a raise on time. You could plug in the hours they worked, what they made at the time, verify that those dollar amounts match their payroll listing, plug in the new rate, and it would recalculate all, what the rate pay rate should have been, break it down by all the TC codes. It would calculate the difference in their benefits. It calculated the difference in their life insurance, their 401k, their retirement pension. It did all of this based on plugging the schedule you worked. And this, by the way, was not like a single pay period thing. This thing had 990 rows. The longest salary adjustment I processed on it once was 15 years. And that's
a hell of a back pay chunk.
It was 965, 970 rows of data once I plugged it. It took me 3 days.
I would imagine it would.
Because I had to literally, after I plugged all this in, I had to verify that like what my spreadsheet was generating as far as what they got paid originally matched what they did get paid originally to make sure all the differential amounts were correct. It was a long process. But the point is, one of the things that she does is if any of the subtotal amounts don't add up, it starts lighting stuff up in red. And that is specifically because there's a part of this spreadsheet where you have to plug in all of the TC codes used throughout the entire sheet so that it can give you line by line all of your base pay, all of your night differential, all of your Sunday differential. It has to break all it up by the actual time codes because those are all used in the payroll system to make sure that your E&Ls and everything else gets adjusted properly. Because all that gets tracked. So if you forget to put in one of those amounts, or if you get to put in like one of those TC codes, the whole sheet starts lighting up in red saying, this is wrong, this doesn't match, this doesn't match.
Well, it's great for error spotting and stuff like that.
Yes, but even I was quick to warn all my coworkers, like, it works reasonably well, but you cannot trust it 100% because there were times, bro, where like, this thing would start lighting stuff up in red, and I will go in and independently redo the math with a calculator, and it's to the penny perfect. But conditional format just got pissed off that one time.
I wonder if it's some kind of overflow error.
Or a rounding error. Be honest with you, the only way I ever managed to clear it was by going in and overwriting the formulas in that cell and plugging in the exact same number, and it cleared it.
That's got to be some kind of internal rounding error.
But it's not rounding because round to the second decimal place is on every single formula in the entire sheet because it's all dollars and cents.
Stack Overflow error?
Bro, I spent 4 years building and tuning this spreadsheet and
still don't always work right.
I processed literally thousands of pay adjustments using it.
Interesting.
And
it just gets mad sometimes.
Every now and then it gets a little pissy.
I get that, man. I get that.
Morgan Horde. What is your opinion on Iraq 8888? Have you been following the GunTube drama lately?
So I have been largely not watching gun content on YouTube for a very long time. I used to follow his videos quite a lot back in the day when I was just getting into shooting because I was like, I know nothing. This guy's reviewing all the guns.
Was it when Barry was still around?
Yeah, when Barry was still around.
Barry was a national treasure.
Yeah, I watched for a little while after Barry was gone. And I just I got to the point where I felt that my ability to sort the data myself was good enough that I could come to the right conclusions about different things. I liked his burn down videos. I liked the different times he would show off rare or obsolete weapon systems. And then I found Forgotten Weapons. And I get pretty much all my fix on that from him.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the videos are amazing.
I think what Morgan Horde is probably referring to is recently there's been some kerfuffle on social media about how supposedly this guy like either cheated on his wife or divorced his wife and started hanging around a gun buddy. And then they got married, and she took him to the cleaners and took all of his money. And I don't know. Like, I've heard so many different versions of all this dramatic
so a guy
nonsense.
made a bad mistake in dating. Great.
Well, yeah, but
Which one of us hasn't?
But this comes on the heels of like Grantham leaving his second wife and cheating on her with all kinds of other married women.
Now Garantham's a military vet, yeah?
Yeah.
Rack vet, 88, military vet.
G-Watt.
Not necessarily, as a group, known for necessarily the healthiest marriages or mate selection patterns.
I am kind of an anomaly, apparently.
I mean, look,
despite having
a lot of my friends,
the beard, the book, the tattoos, and the coffee company.
Yeah.
I look,
podcast.
Everyone here has heard the old joke that like,
SEAL team comes with a movie deal.
Well, DD-214, ruin, credit, and divorce. Every veteran must have 2. And oddly enough, the only the DD-214 do I have. Like, I'm happily, faithfully married and with excellent credit, so I've somehow avoided all the pitfalls of being a vet.
Look, there's reasons why military marriages don't often go well. You could be away from your spouse for a long time, and any of us that went away to college with a high school girlfriend knows exactly how well that tends to end up. One of you tends to do some walking out or leaves. Look, it just happens. When people are separate, these things happen. When people are not living together all the time, they can develop coping mechanisms that aren't really healthy or useful when you are together all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I understand where Maury's come from with Iraq veteran 88. Me personally, like, I don't know. I stopped watching him years ago because kind of the same things that Nick is echoing. Like, I don't watch a lot of GunTube anymore. Like, I am a faithful follower of Forgotten Weapons because I'm a nerd. Ian's a nerdy bastard. And
would have a beer with that guy.
Oh, in a split second.
It would probably ruin my credit, though.
And I watch like Ultimate Reloader, Johnny's Reloading Bench. Like, I'm getting back into reloading content just because I'm standing my reloading gear back up. But like, I don't know. There's not a lot of like gun content I watch anymore. And I think a lot of this is just down to like one of the questions I have for Nick, which will come up in a minute, even though the bastard spoiled it by looking at the notes ahead of time.
I do not remember them.
Good. That's the right answer. But like, I'm at a point where like, until my father-in-law willed us a couple of firearms, or not willed, he's still alive, but like, gave us a couple of his old firearms, I was actively talking myself out of buying more guns because
I currently am.
I have plenty, and I have enough to arm the entire neighborhood if I want. Like, I don't need more. What I would like to have more of is ammunition and time to train.
Yes. That's the big one. The time to train is the real sticking point. I am finally getting out to the range with this 1022 that I bought.
Yep.
And I'm bringing way too much stuff with me.
And I think that becomes the killer of those. Like, for the guys that do amass these huge arsenals and these huge gun collections, like, it's almost like having a big classic car collection, At a certain point, you have to invest time in keeping the stupid things from rusting into the pavement.
Which, if you're a gun tuber, your livelihood is that massive collection of firearms. I get it. My livelihood requires a massive collection of metrology tools.
But
I will probably never stop gaining them.
But the problem with having the enormous gun collection is that there's a certain amount of maintenance and rust prevention and care and feeding that must be done to them. And that's before we talk about training with all of them. Yes. Like, when I go out to the range Saturday, I'm bringing my 18-inch AR with the bipod and the 1-6 because I've got. I really just want to spend some time shooting and confirming
I got a question for you about
the 77 grain load that I have for it, and I am bringing my 308 Winchester out that I haven't shot in 3 years.
Well,
and
I will say this,
and 2 boxes of precision loaded ammunition.
Yeah.
I intend to convert all that shit into noise because I just do not have enough time behind this gun. And it's one of those things where it's like, for all this, in the interceding 3 years, you know what I've spent a lot of time doing? Not going to the range, first of all. And when I would go to the range, I would prioritize shooting my daily carry gun because that's a priority. I spent some time shooting my 12 gauge to get used to it. Spent some time shooting my carbine with the red dot. I spent time shooting all these other things because those were kind of like I had to prioritize what was most important. And the most important things were the things most likely to be used in a home defense scenario. And the
Rightly
308
so.
Winchester that can stack 4 rounds on top of each other at 100 yards ain't the thing to use for door kicking.
It would be. I mean, guys have used bolt guns for door kicking. Bigger balls than I've got.
But you have to have some real good faith in your shot placement at that point.
Yeah. No, hard pass. Door kicking is for fools that are on government health care. So we won't be doing any of that.
Yeah. Let's clear a couple of these out. Then we'll get to fired questions at each other and let these questions pile up. Morgan saying his latest videos don't add up. His body language and story does not add up. I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to say this with the understanding that Nick and I are on the internet. My assertion is that most people in the land of social media are not who they claim to be or portray themselves as.
Correct.
I, by virtue of the fact that this is a hobby, do not care enough to portray myself as anything other than what I am. I'm very open about the fact that I am a family man. I am a gigantic nerd. I'm a computer nerd. My hobbies are well known to everybody. I am deeply, deeply shy and introverted. Like, I can do this because I'm just talking to Nick, and all of you people in the comment section really don't exist. But if I thought for a split second I'd stand up and talk to like 200 people, I'd be in the corner in the fetal position because I'm an introvert. I'm not the guy that does public speaking. I'm honest about who I am, but I'm gonna tell you that most people on the internet, you have no earthly idea who they are because they built a career around being a person and playing a role.
Exactly. And that's the thing I think more people need to not get used to, but they need to take a step back from the social media and say, okay, just like Mel Gibson, just like Danny Trejo, just like The Rock, they're all playing a character to sell to their audience their content. Now, you see this especially in a lot of the niche communities, like prepping, for instance. Everything is doom all the time, forever with the big prepper channels. You know who I'm talking about. You know who you are. It's always the end of the world there because that's what sells their content. That's what gets their advertisements out to the most people. That's what pays their bills. Look, I get it. I don't make fun of them for that. I don't hate them for that. I don't dog on them for that. I just point out that they are a person playing a character, playing a role for the content they are delivering. Do you really think that, I don't want to even use their name. Do you really think they're like that in person? Probably not. I mean, maybe some of them are. I would be willing to bet Ian from Forgotten Weapons is exactly the nerd you think he is. Because I don't think he cares enough to play a role. He just wants to show you, look at the cool thing I found, or somebody let me play with. But, I don't know. Having met a few other people that are on social media, I am pretty big into D&D. I'm pretty big into Warhammer. I've been to the conventions. I've met some of the social media people associated with those groups. They are not typically the personality they play online.
Never meet your heroes type of thing?
Yeah. Well, not so much. Not that they're bad people. It's just that they're not the character they portray online necessarily. Especially when it comes to a point where you get so big, you get audience captured, and you end up having to play to the type to continue growing the audience or to maintain the audience. It's a hazard that anybody runs attempting to get big on social media.
That's fair. So we have questions for each other while we let the.
I have one for you.
Is it going to be about the thing we talked about today?
It is going to. Well, it's going to be about one of the things we talked about. Phil, you mentioned the 1-6 scope on your AR.
Yeah, I did.
You also mentioned to me today that you're considering increasing the magnification of the optic on this rifle. And what was my response?
I don't remember exactly what you said, but I interpreted it as, what are you trying to do with it?
Correct. And what we ended up discussing was, how do you personally determine how much magnification or which type of optic your rifle requires?
So I think it's worth pointing out, first of all, that like you can make an argument that a red dot helps you aim.
Mm-hmm.
It is because
it can,
your aiming surface is in a single focal plane, unlike iron sights. It is inherently quicker if you train with it.
Yeah, if you train with it.
But magnification, whether you're talking about a magnifier behind a red dot or a scope, doesn't help you aim better. It helps you see further.
Correct.
So my perspective, like when we talk about like defensive weapons, is you don't need, I mean, like with a 5.56, Nick, they're good to what, reasonably 500 yards.
I have seen people reliably shoot, I would say, human torso size targets at 500-600 yards. I know of a guy that shoots prairie dogs at 300 yards, and those are significantly smaller. Yep. He is also a wildly above average marksman.
Here's the problem, though. Can you possibly identify one human being from another at 500 yards without magnification?
Probably not. No, unless they're drastically different in build. Probably not. Or not with my vision anyway.
Or if you're talking about like in a military context where you know what the opposing for the op4's uniform looks like, you can reliably shoot anybody you wearing that uniform in a combat zone.
Assuming they're silhouetted or brightly illuminated, probably. But
yeah,
when are soldiers who are in an active conflict willingly silhouetting or actively highlighting themselves?
But
it happens.
But here's the trick. See, this is also where like my experience from the military kind of feeds into this, because like I enlisted in 2000. I was trained using the doctrine left over from the end of the Cold War.
Sure.
Where the idea was we were going to be defending Western Europe from like human wave attacks of communists coming in from the East.
You really don't need to be concerned with who's in front of you. Everybody is either left to right or behind you.
If they were coming from that direction and they were wearing a uniform with a big red star on the top, you just canoe them and be done with it.
Smoke away. Yeah, exactly.
And as a result, at the time, there was not a lot of prevalence or a lot of thought given towards magnification because it wasn't necessary. You can hit targets, you can hit man-sized targets at 300, 400, 500 yards with iron sights. It's doable.
With my unmagnified red dot, I have a Vortex. I think it's a Spitfire. It's the ×1, so it's unmagnified, but you can't put a magnifier behind it.
Spitfire or Strike Fire?
Dude, I get those two confused all the time. It's the prismatic one.
Is it the micro dot with like does it look like an RMR or does it look like an old aim point?
It looks like an old style aim point, but it's a prismatic.
Oh, I forget which one that is.
It's an etched reticle prismatic. I always get those two confused, whichever one's the etched prismatic that you can get in ×1 or ×3.
So it's not the Spitfire or the Strike Fire. The Strike Fire looks like an old aim point, like a T1.
Mm-hmm.
And the Spitfire looks like an RMR, and I forget what they call the one you're talking about.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. But the point being is, with that red dot, it's really not. It's an etched reticle optic, non-magnified optic. It's prismatic optic. It's a little different. I can reliably make headshots on a 1/3 scale IPSC target at 300 yards out of an AR. It's not a difficult task. One of the things I always used to do when I did shoot I could shoot that rifle all the time, which can't anymore because it's illegal in the state. I would take new shooters out and I would get them to do headshots at 300 yards within one magazine with that rifle. Because it's a rifle. It's going to put the bullets pretty consistently. And at 300 yards, it's a sub-quarter MOA rifle with most loads.
Morgan, he was saying it's a Vortex.
It's a Vortex. It might be I'll look it up while we're talking here. But Phil,
anyway,
go ahead.
To your original point, like the philosophy views behind this weapon really and truly was, I wanted, bearing in mind that like I try not to specialize firearms too much, and I already have a carbine that's got like 2 pounds of tactical bullcrap on it for night vision. So the idea behind this 18-inch rifle was really kind of like the do everything rifle if I only had one. So I've got a bipod on it if I'm shooting from a rest, but it's a very lightweight Magpul bipod that folds up out of the way on the end of a very long rail. So it's way out of my way if I don't want to use it. It's got a 1-to-6, so I could ostensibly dial down to 1x using a quick throw lever and use it like the world's crappiest red dot if I had to. It's got illumination on it, so I can turn that up to 10 and it looks just like a red dot on 1x. I can turn the illumination off, dial it up to 6, and use it like a fairly decent 6x magnified optic. But it was really meant to kind of be the do anything AR. And for that, for the reason I originally built it, 6x is really enough magnification.
Right.
But here's where I get bound up. I get behind that 308 Winchester with a 12x magnified optic. And bearing in mind that even though the whole rifle is nothing really special or awesome, I mean, it's an off-the-shelf Ruger Hawkeye, so it's an M77.
Yeah, with tuned reloads.
It's with a mildly worked over trigger that I polished up myself, with a free floated barrel because I inletted the stock myself.
As you should.
With a not expensive at all Vortex Diamondback, not even a Diamondback Tactical, but just the straight Diamondback scope.
So not the first focal plane one?
No, this was when the Diamondback first came out. It was focal plane 3 and 12.
Yep.
But with that, it's still been capable of having 4 holes touching at 100 yards.
Yeah, absolutely.
And every now and then I get that in my head of like, if I had this much if I had twice the magnification on that AR, but then it means it would mean moving to like a mid power variable optic, losing the 1x, which then kind of pushes that rifle out of the position where I could use it at close range if I had.
It's a designated marksman rifle at that point.
But therein lies the thing I bind up on. I've already got a 16-inch carbine. And if I wanted to shed some weight off of it, I'd rip the magnifier off the back, rip the laser box off the front.
Right.
And I could shed pounds off of that rifle to make it a much more run and gun capable weapon. So I could push that other rifle into more of a DMR role. But does that make sense? Or am I just bored because I've had this gun together for too long and I want to screw with it?
Well, I think there is a certain point where having a gun and screwing with it is fun. It is fun. And if that's your purpose, is having fun screwing with it, that's fine. Change whatever you want. But know going in what your purpose is. The scope I'm talking about is the Vortex Spitfire Prism.
So they named that
they're both named the Spitfire. One's a prismatic and one's not.
That's annoying.
Yeah, well,
that's almost as annoying as one of our patrons recently clued me in, and we told him to do the admin. Yeah, CZ apparently decided to flip-flop the names on the PO9 and the PO7 because used to be the PO7 was the compact one and the PO9 was the full size, and they fucked around with that. So the PO9 is the little one and the PO7 is the big one, and that is going to make magazine selection the biggest, most gigantic pain in the ass for no reason now, because you're going to say I need PO9 magazines, and they're going to be
for
these
the
tiny
PO7
little things that won't lock up in the freaking PO9 because I bought a PO9 back when it was a PO9.
Yeah, I understand where the issue would be. I mean, I get why Vortex is doing what they're doing. The difference is a single piece of glass.
Yeah.
So it is an option on that scope. It's just
option.
Like picking a different reticle on any of their other scopes. You can say that all you want on the news. Dr. Scary Guy says you're wrong. The news says you have to be a sniper to make a 150-yard shot.
I don't accept gun knowledge from people with less rounds downrange than I have.
Correct. I mean, I have had quite a high number of rounds downrange compared to your average shooter.
Which is why you take gun advice from perilously few people, I'm assuming.
I do. I mean, there are definitely shooters that have less rounds downrange than I do that are better shooters than me in certain disciplines.
Any of them newscasters?
Not that I'm aware of, but it's entirely possible. I mean, Keanu Reeves has more rounds, as many rounds downrange as me at this point. So, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
he's also not a douche canoe.
I've never met him. And that's another point I meant to make when we were talking about Iraq Vet 88. I've never met the guy. I don't know his wife. I have no skin in his game, dating or relationship wise. That's about it. Okay, Raggle's right.
Raggle might have a point. I was in the military, and Nick is a competitor. Your round counts are far above average.
I'm not currently a competitive shooter. I will be getting back into that, though.
And I'll push back on that. I literally went shooting with a buddy of mine that I was enlisted with, like years after I got out. And his question to me was, "Why the hell couldn't you shoot this good when you were enlisted?" And I said, "Because they
didn't teach you."
Well, first of all, when I was enlisted, my job wasn't to kick doors in Fallujah. My job was an aircraft mechanic. So it was kind of more important that I knew how not to kill the 4 bastards flying on the Black Hawk than it was to know how to friggin' bullseye 4 rounds in, touching at 100 yards.
If Phil is on the front line shooting at people, things have gone terribly wrong.
Yes. But that's also the reason why, it literally wasn't my job. And it wasn't to say that I didn't take it seriously or I wasn't familiar with AR-15s. I was. It's just to say that, I was not going to put anywhere near the level of training in at the time, not being tip of the spear, special forces or infantry or anything else. My job, my primary function was to make Black Hawks fly.
Yep.
And that's what I spent a lot of my time learning to do.
And rightly so. It's just like any private sector or public sector career field. My job is to take a drawing and make a piece of steel that represents that drawing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get trained necessarily on how to design the piece. I have gotten into that side of it because it's a natural outgrowth of what I do. But when I was just the make the steel to the shape guy, I was not trained on design work. So I shouldn't be good at design work at that point.
So yeah, to polish off your question, that is what I struggle with is I think about, I'd like to put this and the other on that weapon, but then I go right back to the philosophy of use, and I'm like, it already does what it was built to do.
Yeah.
That
choice can change.
Yeah, but it really hasn't, because the thing of it is fair. If I needed a weapon to operate at night, I have one that's already built specifically for that. If I needed something that was more compact, I have something for that. If I wanted something that has longer legs, I've got something for that. This thing was really meant to be the Goldilocks gun that could kind of do everything okay-ish.
Yeah.
If I had to get rid of every AR I have, and I would really hate to tear apart the night vision rifle because I've really spent a lot of time tweaking and turning and screwing with things to make it fit exactly the way I wanted to. But if I could only keep one, that 18-inch AR would probably be it.
Yeah.
Because it's a
dual platform. It really is at that point.
That's what it was meant to be. And that's why I'm really hesitant to sacrifice that 1X. Because that 1X lets me engage from point blank to 300-400 yards.
Yeah, reliably, I would say 300.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
for me?
Let's have an argument.
Good.
What do you think is the minimum number of firearms to recommend a person have?
1.
Okay, defend your answer.
Okay.
I'm going to disagree with you, but
that's fine. If you have the budget for a single firearm and your use case, in this case, I'm taking it as
I didn't front load the question.
Defense.
I didn't front load the question properly.
No, I'm going to front load the question.
Budget was not part of the equation.
Oh, okay. Well,
let me pull this back.
So
let me
budget get it back. Is not an issue.
Let me take it back. It's not a money problem. It's not a space issue.
Okay.
It is, what is the minimum number of firearms you would recommend a person has so that they are mission capable, however you interpret mission capable.
Okay.
But it's not a budgetary issue.
I'm going to go with 3.
I bet I already know where you're going, but let it rip.
I'm going to go with semi-automatic AR platform. Pick a caliber.
Quiet, Stuart. I corrected myself.
he did. Stuart, you can come on next week and argue with us all you want.
He will.
I'm going to go with a semi-automatic rifle Ideally an AR platform just because of availability. Pick your caliber. Could be an AR-10 in 308. Could be a 300 Blackout. Could be a 6.5 Grendel. Do whatever you feel. You do you. It's a semi-automatic rifle. You can put an optic on it if you need to reach out and touch somebody. You can take your optic off if you don't want to. You need a sidearm. You need a pistol because you can carry that every day, everywhere, all the time. And you need a shotgun because there is no game on this continent of North America you cannot kill with a shotgun loaded appropriately.
So my answer is only 2.
Okay.
Slightly different, though.
Go for it.
I think you need at least one AR-15 with a 16 to 20 inch barrel.
Sure.
Nothing really short, nothing really special, nothing really crazy, mid-tier, something solid, something that functions well, something you can put a couple thousand rounds through and you're not going to have to worry about it shearing or breaking or tearing shit up. It has to be chambered in 5.56. It has to use standard magazines, period, end discussion. And the reason for that is because if you've probably heard the old quote from Vietnam that by the time the reason why like a lot of the special forces guys carried AKs was because when you're
by the time you need more magazines, there's plenty of dead enemy around with them.
Yeah. Well, here in this country, if we're ever in a situation where weird things start happening, it's
Glock 19 mags and AR mags.
Well, these days it may not be Glock 19 mags. It'll be SIG M18, M19 mags or whatever the hell the Army's issuing these days. But the point remains, you will find AR magazines in 5.56 literally everywhere you go, and you'll be able to salvage plenty of it from anybody you come across who no longer needs their ammunition for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
So it has been AR 16 to 20 inch, chambered in 5.56, period, end discussion. And then my other answer is going to be the largest handgun in any caliber that you can comfortably and not comfortably. What's the word I'm looking for here? That you can consistently conceal.
Yeah.
So in other words, like if you're a really big guy and you can friggin' like strap a friggin' Desert Eagle to your hip, you go forward and do great things. I'm not that big of a guy, despite being a big guy.
Yeah.
A 9mm double stack compact is like perfect carry size for me. If the biggest gun you can get away with concealing is like a Smith & Wesson Shield or SIG P365, whatever. But you need one concealable weapon.
Sure.
And it should be the biggest gun you can conceal because you don't get points for it being small, cute, light, or comfortable. Bigger guns have bigger magazines. Bigger guns have longer sight radiuses. Bigger guns have more meat in the frame. Bigger guns are easier to shoot better. And if you don't believe me, every son of a bitch in military and police force in the world issues bigger guns to people that don't need to conceal them.
They do. Yeah. They always... or they're almost always 4.5 to 5 inch full size pistols.
Yeah.
Unless the user cannot physically grip them well, then they'll give you a different gun. Because I have seen that occur.
And in this case, I say that if you cannot conceal a gun of that size, you drop down to this biggest size you can conceal. Yeah. You want the biggest.
Not a bad answer.
You want the biggest gun. You want the biggest gun you can shoot well, but you get one that's small enough you can conceal it. Because I'm going to tell you that in the weirdest of weird times, you're going to need that AR-15.
Yeah, probably. A semi-automatic rifle is king shit.
In everything leading up to the weirdest of weird times, the moments where you're still going to work, you're still going to the grocery store, but weird shit's happening, you're going to need that handgun because it's going to be concealable and you're going to be able to carry it everywhere.
A gun that you don't have with you is worthless.
Yep.
But a gun that you don't have with you is worthless.
But the only purpose of a handgun is to fight your way back to your rifle.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I will not dispute that because handguns suck at killing people and things. They do. People get shot with them all the time. Look at the gangbangers in Chicago. They are shooting each other constantly with handguns.
Yeah.
And now AR pistols, which is actually upping the death tolls a little bit. Surprise, surprise. But
so yeah, to your point about the shotgun, I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But I think unless you're talking about hunting, I'm talking about hunting too like a game.
Yeah. That's fair.
There are very few scenarios where a shotgun is going to beat an AR-15 with a 30-round magazine.
Yeah, I would agree with that. My state sucks. Can't have an AR with a 30-round mag unless you're willing to register the mag and the rifle.
Or disobey the law.
True. I opted for a semi-automatic 12 gauge with almost a pound of lead in it that I can unload just about as fast as I can an AR.
I will say there's something
satisfying.
There is something moderately arousing about being able to dump like 8 friggin' 12-ounce slugs or hot shells on somebody as fast as you can pull the trigger.
Look,
it's a thing.
There are very few assailants that will continue advancing into 12 gauge shotgun fire. There are also very few assailants that will continue advancing into 30 rounds of 5.56. Very effective either way.
A half pound of lead is a hell of an attitude adjuster.
Oh, it absolutely is. Look, everybody has to make these decisions for themselves on what they think is the most effective that they are comfortable using. Look, I will admit, my wife will never probably be comfortable firing full power double-aught. She probably won't. She will. I'm very certain she will never be comfortable firing 1-ounce slugs out of a semi-automatic shotgun.
I will say that my dad is probably the best part of, I don't know, 265, 270. Mm-hmm. He's built like I am, but he's a couple inches taller. He's a big man.
And your dad's also what, 70?
72.
72? So he's getting up there in age.
He did not like my 12 gauge.
You know what? That's fine.
He was interested when I told him that Beretta was bringing the A300 Patrol out in a 20 gauge. But when I let him pop off that 12 gauge twice, he literally shot it twice, put the safety on, put it on the deck, and said, "I don't like that."
Look, it is not. 12 gauge shotguns are not a light recoiling firearm.
No,
they're not.
No,
I don't care who you are. You're lying if you say it's a light recoiling firearm. There are shooting techniques that can mitigate the recoil, and proper technique makes a massive difference.
There's also
I hated
some
shooting
people
12 gauge shotguns until I took Trex class.
Really?
Yeah, it's just I was never taught how to shoot one right.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just not terribly sensitive to recoil, but like
Maybe.
I've never
I like high recoiling rifles.
I mean, the heaviest recoiling rifle I've fired is my 308, though.
God.
Unless you're wait.
I am getting rid of that 300 Win Mag.
Unless you're talking about select fire.
Okay, no, that's not fair. That's not fair to compare. That's completely different. That's a completely different ballpark.
That's like a lot of little bitty impulses, not one big impulse, though.
I should see if Sue will let me borrow her 460 Weatherby to bring to Kentucky.
I'd put a smile
on
my face.
It's like $4 a round.
Oof.
I will buy a box.
Ooh.
We won't get through the box.
$4 a round.
Phil, it's a safari weight ultralight.
I'm
in 460 Weatherby. Sucks. And it's ported.
I'm somewhat aroused.
You should be. I might talk to Sue. We'll see.
Anyway, did you have another one for me? Because I have a 2-parter.
Go for it.
It's guaranteed to be a debate.
I do have a good one for you if we've got time. A fun one for you if we've got time. But go with yours.
I can give you a half an hour.
Okay.
So 2-parter. What is the most important and least important prep? Sky's the limit. All the whole preparedness world. What's the most important and what's the least? I swear to Christ, if we say the same thing, I'm going to friggin' throw my mouse. It's cool. It's not going to go that far, but still.
The most important, in my opinion, is a well-funded emergency fund.
We didn't go to the same place. Okay, good call.
And I would say the least important is NBC equipment. Nuclear, biological, chemical warfare equipment.
Oh, we didn't go to the same place at all.
All right, I'll tell you why. The purpose of the nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare equipment is to keep you alive just long enough for your replacements that were never exposed to make it to your defensive position.
And
You
to
are
get you
to
out of
hold
the affected
line
area.
and die. Well, that's true. I mean, the entire idea behind mission-oriented protective posture or MOP gear is so that your soldiers in the foxhole keep shooting at the enemy while they're advancing until you can bring up reinforcements that are probably less likely to die. Now, why do I think the emergency fund is the most important?
It's hard to argue with you about that because I walked into it, but go ahead.
Look, I've said this on the show before. I will say it again, probably as long as I'm on the show. There are very few problems in modern life that cannot be at least mitigated by shoveling scoop shovels full of cash at the problem. The more you pay, the faster you can get services typically if you have a problem. If your roof is fucked and you tell the roofer, I don't care what it costs, put a roof on my house, any roof on my house, they will show up and put a roof on your house. And you write the check and there you go. On your way, hunky-dory happy. If you have to wait for insurance to approve it and then get the roofer out to quote it and then get them to put the roofer on your house, now you have more water damage.
Yeah.
But if you can, pay the roofer and say, hey, look, insurance is going to pay me back for this. I don't care. Take all the documentary pictures you can because I'm not getting up on that roof. Let's do that. The roofer will come in, show up, do the roof. Oh, Raggle. I am having fun with that. Raggle's asking me how the shed is coming. Okay, so quick update. And I'm not going to drag this on too long. The county and the state's attorney have determined that none of the existing procedures, for sure for realsies, allow us to remove that road from the plat map. They have all agreed that there is no existing procedure within the law to remove this. Now what we have come to is what I assume to be petty bureaucratic ass covering territory.
Yes.
Where no one wants to make a decision, so they keep incrementally kicking it up to the next person and the next person and the next person until eventually somebody's going to be like, just do this. And then it will work its way back down to me sometime in the next 2 to 3 years. I'm guessing. That's now my new timetable. I will keep pestering them on a regular basis. I will also be pestering my county board members on a regular basis about this, because if you don't continue to pester them, they will not continue to elevate your issue to the next highest authority.
So I will just say one thing, not that there may not be some petty bureaucratic ass covering going on, but this is to a certain degree just government bureaucratic ass covering, because like you and I have had this conversation before about how when these governing bodies were much smaller and it was like Edna and Leroy in an office together and whatever they said went.
Right. There was no procedure.
Yeah.
Edna and Leroy got to write whatever they wanted.
But now that there's hierarchy and bureaucracy and levels and yada, 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 everyone knows if I just like stamp this shit because the right thing to do here is to make the fucking road go away, because there's no fucking road. There's never going to be a fucking road. But if I do that, and my boss finds out, they're going to be pissed about why didn't you come talk to me about it? You don't have the authority to do this.
If the boss finds out and somebody actually needs that road 10 years from now.
No. Bruh, from the person that works in the public sector, listen to me. It has nothing to do with whether or not, listen, Jesus could come down from the clouds and say, no one needs the road. I have decreed it. I have lightning bolted it onto a stone tablet. There will never be a need for this road. You are clear, my son, my child. Just make the road go away. They will not do it because their boss will get pissed that they exceeded their office and exceeded their authority. Fair. And look, I'm not telling you that's right.
It's just what it is.
I'm telling you it's how bureaucracies work.
And you know what? That's fine. Look, I have a long time ago attempted to bring myself to a place where I accept what is. There are things in this world I cannot change. Bureaucracy is one of them. What I can do is pester people until the bureaucracy inevitably reaches the end goal, which is this road going away, which everyone who I've talked to, and I've talked to
Everyone.
7 levels of local government so far about this, they've all agreed this is dumb. There should be a simple solution for this. So everybody is technically trying to help me. They just don't have the authority to, they're pretty sure.
But that's because the simple solution involves necromancy.
It does. It does. The simple solution does involve awakening a property developer from the 1950s.
Is a seance an option?
I don't think a seance is considered legal testimony in my county. We could find out.
But wait. In Illinois, dude, like there's been weirder shit.
No, that's just voting. You can vote if you're dead.
Oh, you just can't give legal tests. Thanks for clearing that up, Nick. I get a little confused about.
Yeah, the dead cannot give legal testimony. They can vote. Stuart, I wish I could, and I think I've told you this before, and maybe I've told other people on the show before. I have a neighbor. I have a neighbor that is in a dispute with the county over some wetland interference. He has been dredging, digging, and relocating lots of things in what is recognized wetlands. There is a county drone and an Army Corps guy that shows up about every 2 weeks and does a walk around or flies a drone. There are a lot of representatives from local and national government that occasionally are in my neighborhood. They would notice the shed. Otherwise, honestly, man, my township told me, put up the shed and pay the fine. Deal with it on the back end. Because what are they going to do? Make you tear it down?
What is the fine?
Usually it is 3 times the permit cost.
What's the permit cost?
Like $125.
Bruh.
But
for under $400.
Nope. If your construction is not complete, they can fine you that fine by the day the building or temporary construction area exists.
So you just have to build it so fast that they don't realize it's there until it's done.
Correct. Now, the fact that I have people coming out every week, every 2 weeks, look, dude, I'm trying to play square here.
Bruh, listen, if the Mormons can stand up a frickin' barn in an afternoon, you
can't with a concrete foundation. Look, I would have to. There is. Phil, I know you've not been out to my property.
You are too smart of a guy to not get creative about this. I know there's.
I could. I am purposefully trying to color inside the lines on this property.
You're trying to be a good boy.
I am trying, especially because I know the county is out here every other week. But the way my property is, there is a large hill. I will have to do some quite considerable earth moving that's not going to get done in a day. The concrete work is not going to get done in a day. And you need to let that concrete cure for about a month before you put the building on top of it. They're going to see the foundation there.
That's probably all fair, but just so we can move on past the point, and you and the audience can understand the look that they can't see, because the audio listeners can't see the look that was on my face. But you know what I always say when I hear somebody say there's a fine.
Yeah,
that means it's legal for a fee.
But you have to remember what I said. There is a fine per day accessible.
I don't need any more reasons to dislike your government.
I know. But look, I would like to. I'm probably not going to have the opportunity to move in the near future. I will have to deal with whatever good or ill will I generate in this county, probably for the next decade, more than likely.
So you're trying to be a good boy.
I'm trying to color inside the lines because, look, there are things that I'm going to be doing in that garage that my neighbors probably will hate.
That's fair.
I am probably, because I just found all of the blueprints for a 22 LR Gatling gun. More coming on that.
And Gatling guns are not machine guns.
They're technically not machine guns, and they're technically not magazine fed. They're hopper fed. So I'm not quite sure how that plays with Illinois laws. We're going to find out.
I'm positive you'll still go to prison.
I have so many questions for my lawyer.
But I'm pretty sure your lawyer is going to recommend an abundance of caution.
I am going to end up eventually with this garage, one way or another. Pretty much everybody has agreed with me, even at the county level has agreed with me about this. I'm going to end up getting the permit for this. We just have to work the process
and
get through the process. And then when I put all of my machinist stuff in that garage and I'm making hellacious noises at 8:15 on a Saturday morning and the county comes out or the sheriff comes out, I can be like, look, all this has been cleared. We're all good to go. I'm past the noise ordinance. All this is in the green. It's all fine. Everything's up to code. You can't tell me to stop because I color inside the lines with these things.
That's fair. All right, let me answer the question I asked you, then we have a Stuart, and I think that might be it.
Go for it.
So, most important prep, I'm going to say, is knowledge.
Okay, that's fair.
Because to your point about being able to solve a roof leak with a lot of cash,
you can solve just about any problem with enough money.
But if I have a tarp and some roofing nails and a little bit of knowledge of how to use them, I can fix that myself.
But if you're an 85-year-old married couple, emergency fund solves that problem without having to get an 85-year-old up on a roof.
But the reason I say knowledge solves a lot of problems is I'm looking at this kind of broad spectrum from pre-emergency to post-collapse. Knowledge always ends up being the thing that separates the person that can do for themselves from the person that cannot. The difference between the guy with the enormous gun collection and the guy that is lethal with it is the one who knows how to use it. Correct. The difference between the nerd who runs around with all the tactical gear and the guy who knows how to move through the woods without making noise, the guy who knows how to friggin', navigate over the land, the guy that knows how to use his radio, the guy that knows how to use his weapon, the guy that knows how to use the things is training and knowledge. So yes, Rachel, I am not encouraging him to go to prison or jail.
My wife encourages me to follow the rules.
But what I heard him say was for $400, he could avoid 2 years of bureaucratic nonsense. And I can't speak for everybody, but I would pay
$400 a day.
Well, but that's assuming you didn't get done in one day. And I still think there's a way to get this done in one day.
They're not the size I'm planning.
Well, I'm sure there's a way to get this done in 2 weeks before.
Maybe, and you could. I am going out of my way to try and do this the right way.
If you finally lose your taste for that, I have an idea.
It's devious.
Too. It's devious and underhanded, and it's probably concealable.
I have an idea based on the Roadrunner cartoon, and I've pulled it off before.
Anyway, most important, I'm saying knowledge / training. Mm-hmm. Training's how you get knowledge. Knowledge is how so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
Least important guns. Least important prep guns.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you why. I've used this analogy before whenever I talk about like why I have a blowout kit in my vehicle, why I have Band-Aids in my work bag, and I keep ibuprofen and Excedrin and so on and so forth. In all of the years that I have been out of uniform, I've had to pull my gun on one person in anger because they somehow thought stepping into my home without my permission was going to end well, and a 45 pointed between their eyeballs convinced them to go somewhere else. But in every other facet of my life, I have needed my first aid kits and knowledge. I've needed copious quantities of Band-Aids and alcohol prep pads and antibacterial stuff. I've needed to fall back on my food stock several times. I've needed to fall back on my vehicle maintenance supplies, my tools. I've had to fall back on all these different things I include in this huge umbrella that's preparedness. One time have I needed a firearm.
Mine's
in 20 years. Now, part of that could be I live in a really safe place and I try not to inject myself into places where stupid things happen. But I'm not saying don't have guns or guns are not important. I'm just saying if your whole preparedness plan is I have all the guns and all the bullets, you're going to be dead in a week because there's all
Yeah.
things up to the SHT, all the Fs. There's all these things that are going to happen before that you can get your way out of if you have things at your disposal, but you can't shoot your way out of most of those problems.
I have also only ever had to pull a gun in anger once. Ideally, it would have stayed at 0, but
we don't always get to make that determination.
I sure didn't.
But to your point, how many times have you had to dip into your emergency fund?
Oh, Christ. Twice a year. Twice a year, minimum.
Not to put all of our business out in the street, because one day Mrs. Matter of Fact is going to resurrect Raising Values, and we're going to talk about why that show has been on hiatus for a while, because there's been a lot of personal crap going on in her life and my life.
Happens.
Her life and my life by extension. But needless to say, I've dipped into our family emergency fund like twice a month for several months.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never been like a rate it down to 0. Oh my God, we're broke. But it's been like we have a budget, and that budget does not account for multi-$100 unexplained, unexpected things. That's why we have an emergency fund.
And that is why it exists.
And we've had to tap that multiple times per month for several months to cover out-of-pocket expenses we're expecting to get reimbursed for.
It happens.
Yeah.
And end-of-life care is wildly expensive. So is settling assets and
settling assets and property that's a whole motherfucking...
Selling houses turns out expensive.
Yeah, especially when you find years of deferred maintenance that didn't get done properly, which is what happened today.
Yep.
Actually, no, it's happened today for the third time.
Good.
Anyway, so yeah, my answer is knowledge is most important, guns is least important. And not to say the guns are not important, but I'm going to tell you that knowledge has got me out of a lot more problems than guns have.
Agreed. That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. That's a good one.
All right. How in the hell are there 3 Stuart questions and 1 guy that comments?
Because Stuart's on 2 separate accounts posting questions.
I unstarred the Facebook one because that was just a duplicate of one of the
I think you did do it twice. We can bank these other ones for doing it a different time later.
I bet we can hammer these out. We got about 20 minutes.
Sure.
I have about 20 minutes. Do you have 20 minutes?
Yeah, I can be on until 9.
Excellent. I am just inebriated enough that we can let this flow.
Good.
Stuart, how do you build a local community network without compromising your operational security? You don't.
Don't build it as a prepping group.
Well, but whether you call it a prepping group or anything else, like you're going to have to expose yourself to some degree. It's kind of an extension of the same conversations that, Andrew and I had years ago, and now Nick has taken part in, because like to put yourself out there on social media and to espouse an idea or a lifestyle or whatever, you do give up a certain amount of your anonymity. If Nick and I were doing this under assumed names and someone dug hard enough, they would figure out who we were.
I mean, with facial ID, with voice pattern recognition software being easily accessible, and it really is, they're going to find out who we are. I mean
10 years ago, if somebody would have dug hard enough, somebody would have figured out who I was.
Yeah, you definitely could have 10 years ago.
Especially
20 years ago, you could have too.
Especially with, I think this is episode like 476, with 400 plus episodes spread out over 10 years in the pipe. If somebody really wanted to figure out who I was, they would just dig back through everything and like piece together all the clues. Sooner or later, they
have you heard of geoguessing?
I haven't.
It's where people take a picture of a random location or pseudo-random location with no context, no written signs. And the goal is to get down to the exact meter, if you can, of where it is on the planet.
I know what you're describing. I've just never heard of geoguessing.
Yeah, the subreddit was called geoguessing.
Yeah. But like I said,
I mean, they found Shia LaBeouf's flag within, what, an hour every time he started flying it?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, how do you build a local community without compromising your OPSEC? I think at a certain degree, you can't. Like sooner, maybe you can expose it a little at a time, but I feel like I feel like to maintain 100%, I feel like you have anonymity and you have this group you're trying to build, and you're going to have to trade one commodity for the other.
Yeah. I mean, if you couch it in community preparedness or say community response to various things, you can minimize the potential OPSEC issues. But if people come to your house and they see a goodly portion of your house, they're going to be able to tell that you have more food than normal, a bigger gun safe than normal. If they go to the range with you or go to a training class with you and you've got body armor, they're going to ask a question, because most people don't own body armor. It's
I guess my
gotten to
point
be
of view,
more
though,
people.
my point of view, though, is that by the simple act of expressing interest, you're kind of putting a flag up in the air.
It depends on how much that person's paying attention. That's
For the
what I'll say.
for the person who's looking for all the crazy tinfoil hat wearing preppers in an area, they're going to notice.
Yeah, exactly. Granted, your average soccer mom and white collar dad, blue collar dad, probably not going to notice.
No, but the people you would be worried about guarding your OPSEC from,
they will notice.
They are so well trained and so well attenuated to finding people like you. I would say that guard the information, dole it out as slowly as possible without arousing suspicions. Because if a person's trying to buddy up to me and they're being really cagey, that's going to kind of set off my bullshit detector.
Yeah.
But if you want to not, invite them in and show them the whole spread all at once, I get that. But you're going to have to make peace with the fact that you're going to have to give up your anonymity to get that group together. True. To some degree. Maybe you hold back 20%, but you're not going to maintain 100.
Yeah.
Guy that comments, is the Epstein stuff overblown since regular folk do sex tourism on the reg? Do I think it's overblown? Exaggerated? No.
I think what he's asking is, he's saying that there's a notable percentage of the population, I don't know what it is, that will engage in sex tourism. Yes. Going to places for prostitutes, for what would be in this country or in certain areas underage individuals. No, I don't think how mad people are about it is overblown. I think if anything, their reaction is not strong enough.
Mm-hmm.
Just because a large number of people are engaging in it does not excuse the bad behavior or the immoral behavior. Slavery was wrong. It was wrong the entire time. Just because everyone was doing it doesn't make it any less wrong. And abusing children will always be wrong.
Yep. No, I got nothing else to add. Yeah. I don't think it's exaggerated. I think if
anything, it's only going to get worse the more that comes out, and it will all eventually come out.
See, that's the part you and I don't agree on, because I think that the people who stand to lose something by that information coming out would sooner nuke the world 20 times over in ash than be inconvenienced.
I don't think they are good enough at keeping secrets.
I don't think they are either, but I think that they would start World War III tomorrow and burn half the world to the ground.
Sure. Why do you think there's a war with Iran right now? Why do you think it didn't just get pushed off a little bit like it has been for the last 20 years?
Distractions.
Right.
Anyway, I don't think it's overblown. I think that people that hurt children should be hung by their ankles, gutted like pigs, and used for human piñatas.
Yeah,
and that's before we castrate them with chainsaws.
I don't think there is ever I don't know that I've ever seen a justifiable reason for abusing children. And I would be startled if anybody could convince me otherwise.
I'm also pretty sure our legal tradition in this country precludes me from doling out what I would consider to be an appropriate punishment.
True. Although, given the amount of people that seem to be involved in the list, it would no longer be an unusual punishment. Cruel, perhaps. Unusual, not necessarily anymore.
I'm willing to roll the dice on that and be the executioner. Sleep like a baby afterwards. Smile for my mugshot.
True. it would be pretty hard to lose sleep doing things to protect children.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah.
All right, two Stewart questions. What role should civilian militias or neighborhood defense packs play during a prolonged civil collapse? So I'm going to refer back to the Militia Acts, plural, all three of them. It was always from the original founding of this country conceived that the body of non-political people in this country, the common man, would compose the militia. And with subsequent rewritings of the Militia Act, we have the most current iteration in which there's the organized and unorganized militia. The organized militia is the state appointed National Guards, and the unorganized militia is all the rest of you fuckers that are not in politics or in the National Guard or in the active military, so on and so forth. So if you don't hold political office and you're not already wearing a uniform, you're part of the unorganized militia. And I believe it is central and crucial to the to the founding doctrine of this country, the idea that we would defend our home, we would defend our homeland, we would defend our community from threats inside and outside. And to all that, and to the point of all that, I kind of believe that the idea is that, me with my AR and my neighbor with his deer rifle and the other neighbor with his 9mm pistol, if things that are weird start happening and they threaten our homes, it's on us to defend our own homes and our own families from that threat. Scale that up to the point where it's now the whole neighborhood has to defend the neighborhood, or the whole city, or the whole parish, or the whole state. But the point remains. I think that the idea, I feel like the word militia has gotten really, really charged over the years, and kind of carrying around some baggage with it. But at the end of the day, what a militia really is a group of people acting in the common defense.
Yep.
And I feel like
that is the end line. That's the last line of defense, realistically.
I disagree that it's the last line of defense. It's the first. What do you always hear me say about police officers?
Yeah, that's fair. I guess I was phrasing that from a national standpoint.
Even from a national standpoint. But let's say, again, like I've prefaced a lot of this, weird shit starts happening, right? So you live in southern Texas or southern Arizona, right up against the Mexican border, and all of a sudden the narcos just decide, we like that first 100 miles of the United States, we're taking it. And that 100 miles includes your ranch. Guess who is going to be the first line of defense? It ain't going to be your local sheriff. It ain't going to be the National Guard. It's not going to be the active duty military. And it's probably not even going to be Border Patrol, because those fuckers are too spread out to be manning every inch of that border. You know who it's going to be? It's going to be the freaking pot-bellied rancher with his friggin' Mini 14 riding his side-by-side around his property that sees these dudes come squirreling out of the wood line looking to take his shit.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's a very good point. Yeah, I'll concede that. First line of defense, yeah.
Take it down to a micro. Valuable. If it's not the narcos crossing the border or the Chinese paratrooping into your backyard, you know what it's going to be? It's going to be some dude that kicks in your door at 3:00 in the morning because he likes your stuff better than his life. And the only thing between you and a really bad evening is going to be your firearm and your ability to use it.
Yeah.
So you are the militia is people. Those people are their first line of defense, because when a violent act threatens your family, you are already the first responder because you're the one there.
That's fair.
You get to decide how that first response works.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
And for Christ's sakes,
I have an answer for this.
If you before we get to that last one, listen to me, guys. If you have children, teach them this shit. If you don't have children, make friends with someone who has children
and then teach
them. Everyone needs to understand that at the end of the day, you do not have the right or the ability to abrogate your self-protection to another person.
Be the crazy uncle.
You don't have the right nor the ability in most cases to depend upon the police, the military, or anybody else to come riding to your rescue to play Captain Sabaho. It doesn't work like that in reality.
Yeah, that's true. It's Captain Write a Report.
And we need to impress that upon the next generation so that they grow up understanding this is a personal responsibility. I need to be responsible for myself and my own security. I have to take steps to be able to protect myself. We have to beat that into these kids, or they're going to grow up repeating the exact same stupid shit most of our generation did.
Yeah.
Which, for the sake of argument, God, hold on. I'm going to write that down as a topic.
Do it. We will need this topic eventually.
Millennials are annoying, because both of us are millennials.
Yes.
But I think we are probably the least millennials in the history of millennials.
To be fair, I was mostly raised in machine shops, welder fabricator shops, and on construction sites in heavy equipment. I was raised weird. Which might explain
I would
a couple
say it turned out
things.
well.
Well, I mean, I turned out to be a mostly productive and somewhat independent member of society that is barely restrained into good behavior by my wife. So yeah, I'd say it turned out very well.
I would say.
Yeah.
All right, the last question. Anything else that comes in? I don't think there's anything else.
You didn't see any, but I could be wrong. Oh, best fuel to stockpile. We'll get that one later.
Yeah. All right. Stewart's got the last question of the night. What is your official tactical strategy for dealing with a sudden, localized, aggressive raccoon uprising?
I have a furry murder missile.
I don't know if he's using raccoon in the literal or the proverbial sense.
I was thinking trash pandas.
Well, I mean, if I have a literal uprising of raccoons, I'm going to feed them and I'm going to indoctrinate them in my ways and teach them to take people's lug nuts off.
You train attack raccoons. Or yes, you deploy your very murderous and adorable pit bull mix. She likes to murder everything that is her size and smaller. It's phenomenally effective. Except with possums.
That's because possums are awesome. You shouldn't kill them.
Well, no, it's because they play dead and they don't squeak when she bites them. So she gets bored and then just rolls in their poop.
That makes sense.
Super helpful.
So yeah, if we're talking about literal raccoons, my vote is I teach them how to use diagonal cutters and cut people's brake lines that I don't like.
Yes.
And if we're talking about proverbial raccoons,
so random rabbit animal attacks.
I was thinking two-legged rabbit animals.
People.
If he's talking about in the literal way, well, number one is if localized is not where I live, then I'm going to stay the hell away from them because they can go do stupid stuff over there with stupid people, do stupid things,
yes,
and leave my area alone. And if localized means threatening my area of operations, then I call the people in the polyester pajamas and tell them, you have 5 minutes to get over here and deal with this before I feel threatened enough to deal with it myself.
The one time I had to pull a gun.
Was it a raccoon?
No.
Or was it
it was a poor romantic relationship that I was not involved in that led to 6 men showing up looking for somebody who was not me, and they didn't know who he looked like or what he looked like. And I told 911 dispatch, I said, there are 6 people outside with what appears to be bats, and if they come through that door, I'm going to shoot all of them. It took 45 minutes for the police to arrive. They did kick the door in. They saw me standing there down a hallway with a rifle and a plate carrier. They chose to reverse course immediately, and they all got to live unshot. Yeah. Now, that was a stupid situation I was in because I was living in a stupid place with stupid people. There's a reason why I am very concerned with avoiding stupid people and stupid places anymore. The best case scenario, sure, the police get there and they scare them away. Worst case scenario, you're going to have to justify your actions. So act diligently.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot decide beforehand what is going to happen. Because, look, they kicked the door. None of them entered the house. The guy kicked in the door, saw me standing there, determined that I was probably not to be fucked with at that point in time, and decided he liked to live. Perfect. Everybody went home.
Sounds like learning happened.
Look, everybody went home. That's the best possible answer, except I had to fix the door. That was a pain in the ass. And I filed a police report. The people that needed to learn in the situation, I'm not sure if they did. I never saw those 6 guys again.
That tells me they learned.
Well, at the very least, I moved out very quickly after that happened, so there was not ample time for a repeat performance.
But they learned that it was not conducive to their long-term health to pick a fight with the guy who was standing on the other side of the locked door with the rifle and the plate carrier ready to yeet people out of this universe.
Yeah, it turns out when you post up down a hallway and there's no cover, most people figure out real quick it's a bad idea to charge an entrenched position.
Yes. All right. Well, there are other questions, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do is once we wrap, I'm going to go back through those. I'll catch them and I'll store them. And maybe we'll do we could also do every now and then we do like a bunch of mini topics.
Yeah, toss
a lot of these would be perfect for that.
Sure. We can do that.
All right. But for those of you who left questions we didn't get to, I will take them down. I'm going to do my absolute best to include them next time, but I'm not making any promises.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't overpromise, underdeliver.
That's wise.
Including about doing the admin work, which we totally forgot. But you should buy a shirt, you should buy coffee, you should be a patron, yada, yada, yada.
Phil remembered not to lecture me about coffee this month.
Yes, after doing it 3 months in a row, I finally remember, oh, that's right.
Learning has occurred.
All right. Well, Matter of Fact's podcast is going to go out the door. Phil and Nick are going to go bye-bye. He's going to the range tomorrow. I'm going to the range on Saturday, and maybe we'll have a post-range report next show.
I'm bringing so much stuff to the range.
Just remember, on the streams, we are not allowed to touch or hold up firearms because it pisses off the YouTube overlords.
Can we show photos?
So...
It'll be at the range that the photo is taken.
So, do you remember? You may not remember because this was
the intro that got us canceled for a minute.
I had to change the intro and outro because it included footage of me shooting at a gun range.
That's right.
At a gun range, which is specifically within YouTube's rules, but they killed that stream like 6 episodes in a row before I finally took the intro and outro down.
Yeah, that's right. They did. I guess
so.
Not.
No, there's absolutely no touching of the firearms.
Imagine a Ruger 1022 that's 30% optic by volume.
Yes, it's definitely compensating for something.
It's definitely compensating for my vision.
We'll go with that. All right. Matter of fact's going out the door. Good night, everybody.
Night.